Welcome, everyone. I'm Sara Gold, and I assist Kim Kiesewetter managing the WiLS Ideas to Action grant program. This is definitely one of our favorite WiLS projects, and today we're going to provide a brief walkthrough of the clarifications we've made for 2026 to the guidelines and the application itself under the guidance of the WiLS Board Ideas to Action Subcommittee. Then we will provide a chance to hear from you, your questions, your ideas, anything you'd like feedback on. This is the time to ask away. So for 2026, the application period is now open and will close Friday, June 6th. The application form is found on the WiLS website, and we will go ahead and share that in the chat. Recipients will be announced in September, and this year we put a number of things in place to provide additional support for applicants. These include a recorded webinar, this session, which provides real-time feedback, and revised guidelines that provide clarification to applicants about the qualities that make a strong ideas to action proposal. And we've got our team here. So last year we awarded 9 projects totaling $40,000. Since 2018, WiLS has awarded more than $220,000 to 58 libraries and cultural organizations. And the program has experienced tremendous growth since its inception. As the Ideas to Action Committee reviewed 64 applications last year, we identified some recurring themes that needed clarification. So the WiLS Ideas to Action team, as I mentioned, met along with the WiLS Board Ideas to Action Subcommittee. Together we reviewed and revised the guidelines and application, which we are using for this year. We've also added an additional WiLSian, Lisa Martin, to provide some much needed organizational expertise. Lisa has developed a new system to track applications and will continue to help us streamline the back-end work through tagging applications by subject and type. So eventually we'll have a searchable repository of projects. So some of the guidelines around the program we've clarified to help address things that we frequently see in applications. And this is defining a clearly articulated need, problem, or challenge at the local level that also considers any broader application to the wider Wisconsin library and cultural organizational ecosystem. This premise is really the cornerstone or backbone of what an Ideas to Action application should clearly lay out. Including articulated or already established partnerships to carry out the proposed work. These can be across libraries, cultural organizations, or communities. This is to prevent applications that mention possible partnerships, but ones that have not been discussed or framed. Framing a project around a broader goal of the proposal versus framing it around specific equipment purchases. And we can certainly answer questions about that as we get into this. And then including a fully itemized budget with cost estimates for each item is important. And then demonstrating commitment to the spirit of the grant program and having an organizational commitment to the project rather than it just falling on one specific person. So as time goes on, we see previous recipients, including we had one actually this year that had a current, last year that had a current Ideas to Action grant and was applying for another one. So to help manage applications and continue to maintain a fair grant playing field, we've implemented a guideline that states previous Ideas to Action recipients can apply, but at least 2 funding cycles must have passed since the award. So if you received an award during the 2023 cycle, you're eligible again this year. In addition, applicants can ask for both money and WiLS staff time, but all staff time requests should be offset by a reduction in the total proposed funding award. Staff time allocated is determined by staff availability, which is necessary because often the staff time requested falls on two staff members, Kim for data help or Andy with communications. So we've introduced a few questions in the application to help identify and clarify some factors for our reviewers. So first, we're asking applicants to disclose whether a grant writer is used. And next, we want to know if the idea being submitted is a brand new program or already existing program. Both of these are fine. We just want to know upfront if a grant writer is being used and if this is something that has existed and the applicant is requesting money for additional services. Also, we're reiterating in our guideline clarifications on the most requested items and applications. So straight line equipment purchases, author talks and visits and other speaker honoraria, budget items related to consulting services, all of these are not likely to be funded unless they're built into a larger program and broader goal. And then finally, one thing that we want to make sure the applicants understand is that you can ask for less than $5,000. You can ask for a partial amount, and this can potentially increase your chance of acceptance, which is exactly what happened last year. We had two recipients who asked for a lesser amount, and we were able to award both of them. So the application review criteria is so how the reviewers evaluate the applications is remaining the same as in previous years, and it's focusing on 4 areas. So please keep these in mind as you're creating your programs. But need an audience, impact, plan and timeline, and then diversity, equity, and inclusion. And all of this information, by the way, is on the WiLS website under the Ideas to Action section. Also, the project expectations for recipients, this is helpful to review prior to completing your application to make sure that you are able to follow all of these. It's a very low stakes application process. And then finally, if you need help, we're here. We have a dedicated email, i2a@wils.org. Please check out the I2A information on the WiLS website. And just a reminder to note the application deadline date of Friday, June 5th. Okay, so Kim, I think we can go ahead and open it up for questions and comments. And let's please, of course, add anything that you would like after all of my talking.
You did great. That was a wonderful overview. So yeah, let's open it up to the folks who joined today and let us know what questions, clarifications, etc. we can provide you with. Sue Ann and Vicky, it looks like y'all have unmuted.
I did, and I'm trying to get my face on there, but I guess we don't really need my face. Anyway, okay, so I was joining late, so I'm sorry if you talked about this in more detail, but I just want to make sure that I'm on the right track here. So I do collaboration with the public library for our summer reading program. So this year we are funding together the WhaleS event that is in August, based on the theme of the summer reading program. So if next year we come up with a theme and we come up with like a big extra bonus type thing. Is that something that could possibly be funded along with the incentives that students get for completing the summer reading program?
Yes. So we do like to know if an event is already occurring. So that sounds like this is something that happens annually. I think to strengthen it in that situation, because it is something that gives us a pause moment, we want to reach new novel ideas. I would encourage y'all to frame it with, just like you said, judging it up. Like, what's going to be the new element? What's going to be the bigger reach? Is there a way that you can tailor it a little bit more to get at some of those considerations that are outlined in the grant expectations in the guidelines? But definitely something that is potentially on our radar is a project we're excited by everything we read. I have to just say that up front. We would
Okay.
give money to everyone if we could, but that does sound like something that could be a fundable project. And I think it would be strengthened if you were able to find a new angle to go with, the next year when you're planning and putting in a proposal.
Okay, thank you.
And I saw in the chat someone asked, oh, Sarah, you answered that. And year over year, we have been getting more and more applications. So in 2020, I think we had around 20 applications, and we've just been steadily growing each year, which is why we wanted to refine and clarify the guidelines to make sure that, we're helping everyone make this the best use of all of our time.
Anybody else have an idea that they want to share? I mean, when Kim and I are out in the world, oftentimes we'll be talking about the program and people will say, well, you don't really have any. Well, I do have this idea. And they have like practically a fully fleshed out program idea. Um, so if you have questions or you're feeling doubts and you feel brave enough to share, that is what we are here for.
I can be brave enough. Um, so I work for the Winding Rivers Library System, and we have an initiative that we started in 2024 where we're working in small work groups with our public libraries who are interested in considering if solar would be something that they would want to tackle and put up at their library to help with the increasing energy costs that they're seeing and help them save monthly on their utility bills. And we were able to do this program because we received some money from a local philanthropist who was excited by the idea of having a concerted effort that kind of is driven by the library system to help support libraries do this work if this is something their board is interested in. So we have this little pot of money, and the donor is willing to give a percentage of the cost for each library. So then I work with the libraries that are interested, and we find other grants. And because many of our libraries aren't sitting on a pot of money to help them do a big infrastructure, thing like this. So in terms of ideas to action, though, one thing that we're really, really excited about is we think that this cohort system that we've established is very wise. It gives our libraries the ability to tackle a project of this size because there's a staff member at Winding Rivers who is supporting them every step of the way. We also talk a lot about at the end of this project, we don't want it just to be you have solar on your roof and nobody talks about it again. So instead, we ask them to do things like install a public facing solar monitoring station so patrons can see about it. We do educational events about solar and about clean energy, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I did try this last year. I submitted our request to Ideas to Action, because what I thought would be great is $5,000 that would go in our dedicated account that is for solar for these libraries with the other philanthropist who gave us some funds. And if we could find any other people that could help us grow this fund, then we're able to support our libraries even more. They certainly have to find some money themselves, but we're supporting them through the grant dollars that we're raising. Tell me your thoughts about that, and is that something that is just kind of a little bit too outside of the realm for Ideas to Action? Um, it's not a real specific program. It's more of an initiative, but I do think it's something that I would love to talk to other library systems around the state. This is something that you can do as well. So it fits kind of in that way. So just want to know your thoughts. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. No, thank you. That's a great question, great project idea. Sarah, jump in if I start going down a path that is totally different from what you are hearing in terms of the direction I'm about to go. So, I have a couple of thoughts. One, I love the cohort idea. I love this idea of bringing together libraries to collaboratively work on a larger scale, in this case, infrastructure project. I love the elements you just mentioned that are the product of this cohort, the external facing monitor, education around solar, all of that. That all feels very ideas to action oriented. But the money going into an account towards the solar panels themselves potentially does not feel very ideas to action. And so I would flip this to a question of, is there a smaller financial ask you could make that's around your cohort and the work that they're doing, and that model for other people to take themselves? Because I do think that promoting that would be competitive. I think a lot of people would be interested in that. And I could see, I'm sorry, I'm gonna mute whoever's accidentally.
Yeah, one I also don't know.
I don't know. Can you mute them, Lisa, or I don't have the
Yep,
privilege.
just has it for her
Okay.
purpose.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I think that money for the cohort model, I think that would be something that would catch our eye there. Sarah, am I speaking out of turn of the direction that you would go there in terms of recommendations?
No, that's exactly what as soon as Jessica said cohort, my brain lit up, and I think the way that you presented it for smaller asks surrounding the cohort would really appeal to the review committee. Because it demonstrates a need, it's replicable. I'm assuming, Jessica, that at some point you'd be able to share the work, the plan, the idea to putting the cohort together.
Absolutely. We've actually had some really nice publicity done already about what we're doing. That's getting out on places like Resource Rural and another entity. I can't think of the name right now throughout the state. I guess I totally understand what you're saying. I don't know. The cohort itself is, how do I say this? It's part of my job. Um, so every library that is interested, we there's not expenses for the cohort itself.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, unless we pull something out of their um, project, like the public facing monitoring stations.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. Okay.
that's
I
what
love
I
that.
would think, right? I said yep out loud without.
No,
Since you're
I
doing
don't
this a
know much
lot
about
longer than I have.
the cost there. So one of the things we really think about with ideas to action, which is going to be an indirect answer first, is how replicable something is to another library. So how can we frame a project that has at least a component of it that's going to be inspiring to folks and is going to be attainable without necessarily having a bucket of money that's coming to you? And so things that take up a big bulk for like a purchase have to really be carefully contextualized for us to go for it, even when, we have this conversation. I'm like, your project, I'm like, I get it 100%. And there's definitely ideas to action elements to it. But when I think of solar panels, I'm like, that's tens of thousands of dollars across different libraries. That's very challenging to think about people being able to duplicate. But a cohort coming together to solve a problem collaboratively is something that I think a lot of people are interested in thinking about how to do that there. And if there is a smaller component of what you're working on with the solar project that takes it from an infrastructure project to something that's community oriented, that's patron focused, that other people could duplicate or think about duplicating in some form or fashion, like, oh, well, we have a pollinator garden. We should think of different ways to try and advertise that to our patrons and use it as an education movement or something like that. So the programming, the monitor, those things all feel a little more tenable when it comes to the ideas to action guidelines. But I mean, the whole project is awesome. I love this. And so yeah, Sarah, any more thoughts that I haven't touched on?
Jessica, how much is, you were talking about the public, when you're talking about that public facing
Mhm.
monitor, is that just, is that some sort of data that you're pulling that would
Yeah.
say you say,
Yep.
can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that could be something that's low cost and replicable, right? If you already have the
If you
solar.
already have solar, yes, yes.
Yeah,
So
okay.
if you already have solar or you're putting solar on, like our cohort libraries are doing or have already done, um, they receive real-time data via an app from their
Hmm,
inverters, which
hmm.
it's funny how people love to watch their solar panels and what they're doing on a really sunny day. It makes them really happy. And so that's where the idea came from 4 years ago when I did this at my public library was, okay, we're getting that data. Let's through the, you have to go to a website. So you have to have a little computer on the back of a monitor that pulls this data and displays it on a screen that you just mount near your front door or, a popular place in your library. So it's a consistent educational opportunity. It's a passive program, if you will. It's a ability for people to understand the impact that the panels are having on the library and its
Hmm,
budget and just the environment.
I love it.
hmm.
That definitely
Yeah,
resonates. So I think an
yeah.
application that frames this cohort model, doing an infrastructure project with an emphasis on how to take that kind of more, removed experience and tie it back to your community, to your patrons through something like the monitor, something like programming around solar panels and energy, things like that. I could see that being a really strong ideas to action application.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it.
And being clear, I think, Jessica, in your
Mhm.
application that this is with the understanding, or this is, directed towards an audience that has solar, or, so that it's clear that you're not, that this component is about the public facing education, fun, recreational. Look how fun solar is to watch, frankly, Um,
Yeah.
we'll make it really clear that you're not
Mhm.
saying, oh, we're gonna do solar and we want a grant to pay for it.
Yeah. To help pay for it. Okay. Yep. Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jessica.
you. Kim, did you see the question? Vicky had a question.
Yes. So not Vicky asked, the grant is looking for unique grant applications. Does that mean if a project has been funded before by a different library but would be new to our community, it wouldn't be funded? We absolutely have funded things that are down similar veins. So that is not a deal breaker. But For all applications, what really carries the strength is that, project justification section of the application where you're kind of sharing like what in your community, in your library is driving the need for this. And so demonstrating that, showing that you've done your research, showing why this would be meaningful to your community is helpful if it's something that has come up before. So don't be afraid of drawing off of a similar idea. If you can put your local spin on it, that will definitely help improve the chances of it getting funded, mainly because we do look for new novel ideas. So when we're going through the applications where it isn't something that we've seen before, definitely jump out when reviewing it. But that doesn't always necessarily mean that that's what ends up getting funded.
And also just to reiterate, so we see a lot of requests for the equipment, somebody to do a story walk, for example, that's very unique to a particular community. They've been done before. They may have even been funded in the early
They
days.
have.
Okay. But at this point, the story walks are kind of down to like the equipment. It's often an ask for like the equipment to create the story walk, and that is probably not going to be funded because it's an ask for the equipment. However, say you were doing something with, you wanted to do a story walk that incorporated like a memory care feature. So for people with Alzheimer's, for example, and you fold it in like a youth group or something like that. I'm literally just making this up as I go along, but some sort of component that brings together different areas of a community in a unique way around the story walk, just like what we talked about with Jessica. Maybe not focus on paying for the story walk as much as bringing the community together, if that makes sense. The same with that we see a lot of the book vending machines, which is such a great concept, right? In we've seen them presented in a variety of ways. For anything from like homeless students to um wait waiting outside of a transportation hub, a myriad examples. But the vending machine itself, there has to be some sort of programming built around the vending machine, if that helps.
Yes. Vicky just asked a question. She said, we are a public library. We work with the local public school and 2 parochial schools in our town. Are we allowed to partner with religious schools or homeschool consortium in the grant? Absolutely. We don't have any criteria against that.
And that would be super unique. So it could be a program that maybe has been done before, like a screen-free night or I don't know, something to bring together those different communities would be really unique.
Yes. And those are the type of partnerships we look for. Absolutely. So
Yes.
being able to show how you work across all the different schooling entities in your community, I think is a win and a good model for sure. Other questions that folks might have come with? Okay. Well, Sarah and I will hang out for a few more minutes to make sure if anybody has some questions. Oh, good. Here's one that just came in. Our local hospital has asked us to assist with a book vending machine in the hospital waiting room. How about this? If I'm super frank, it's been difficult for us to get a book vending machine grant proposal that's come through that's really we haven't gotten stuck on some of the challenges with this. One, it tends to be a very heavy equipment ask, right? Like it's like buy a book vending machine. The problem with that is it's expensive, and maintenance and the costs of keeping books in it are not typically addressed in the application. I think if somebody wrote one where there is a clear sustainability plan through partnership developments to show how books would be able to be replenished, the plan for all of those things there, if it's one of those ones where people are keeping the books, and how maintenance expenses and things like that will be handled, because we've done a little research and I know that there can be challenges with keeping that up if there isn't a person or plan for how to do that. So not something that typically is going to be super competitive, but that isn't to say there couldn't be one that was written in a way where it really addressed the type of concerns that those projects bring up and help people think about, how to replicate it. That the cost of the vending machine also just remains a barrier in that.
Mhm.
I'll give it another minute in case somebody's typing or thinking. So I'll sit here then, but also know that, as Sarah mentioned, we can be reached at I2A, the acronym for Ideas to Action, at WiLS.org. I'll put that in the chat. And we're happy to provide clarifying questions, things of that nature. Due to the volunteer nature of the fund, I do want to note one of the reasons that we did this session and are so happy that y'all are here is that we are not able to read a fully prepared proposal and offer feedback on it beforehand. The scope of things is just too large. We're happy to answer these types of questions. Can you clarify this? Can you let me know, if you think this will work, things like that. But we cannot do a full review of a proposal beforehand, and feedback is limited to generic feedback for rejected proposals when we go through a funding cycle.
Good news is that eventually, we will have sort of a repository, of projects that have been funded and not funded, both? Will it be
Yes, I
both?
think we'll
Okay,
have
that's
a
great.
resource of both. I don't know how we plan to post, if we will, not funded projects, but we will have the themes of those at least available. So those tags will help us kind of be like things that fall into this category, etc. Vicky asked, author talks don't typically get funded. Entertainment shows in the summer shared with the local schools might work. I actually don't know what type of entertainment show. Can you provide a little more clarification about what that looks like? Jessica, I have two golden retrievers, so they're essentially doodles with the allergies still attached. I want to be
Vicky
them
might
when I
not
grow up.
have a mic. Um,
That's
I'm
why I was
wondering if
waiting in case she was typing.
Vicky, if you're referring to the summer reading um performers that happen throughout the summer, so like a shared um program between your library and the local schools or the parochial school.
Mm,
Okay, there we go.
okay. STEAM activities with Unearth Your Story, Fossil Snakes, etc. Yes, we have funded events like that before. So especially things that draw on unique partnerships, have, like some fun spice about the programming aspect of it. Those are all things that increase the chances of that event being funded. But we do fund events. We just typically do not fund just straight up author talks honoraria for people to come have a specific speaker come talk at their programming event. Thanks, Jessica. Sounds like we're wrapping up. I'll stay on for another minute or two, like I said, in case somebody's feeling shy and wants to ask a question after everyone gets off. But thank you for coming today.
Thank you, everybody.